Hello, everybody. We are back this week with Madyson Greene from Madyson Greene Coaching. She helps new U.S. Marine Corps spouses succeed at their first duty station, and she has a ton of experience with the military spouse community. She's worked for the USO and president of the Military Spouses Association. So I think we're in good hands today when it comes to military spouse knowledge. So Madyson, thanks for being on the podcast. I'm excited to learn from you and hear what you have to share with the listeners.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with everyone today.
Good. Us too. Tell us a little bit about your background, kind of where you are, how long you've been in the military spouse community, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So we're here in the middle of the desert, a remote desert duty station. Some listeners may have heard of it, 29 Palms. It's kind of that duty station in the Marine Corps that no one really wants to go to.
Yeah.
There's an expression that you cry when you get here, but you also cry when you have to leave, because at first you don't want to come here, but then you don't want to leave because you really get involved with the community out here. We've been here at 29 Palms for 3 years now, and we're currently planned to be here until the summer. So we'll be here nearly 4 years by the time we end up leaving. And it's starting to get bittersweet thinking of having to leave. But so we have been here 3 years. And within our time being here, I've really gotten involved with the military spouse community. First, of course, getting involved within our home unit and kind of like the family readiness and things within the home unit. But then I was able to get my job with the USO, like you mentioned during the introduction. And I spent about a year and a half in that role. And I was actually the very first USO staff member here at 29 Palms. So I was able to really get the USO started here on the installation. And of course, we'll kind of go more into what I did there later on with the events and things of that nature. But so I did that for a year and a half, but then I had my daughter Eloise. She's now 9 months old. And the USO was just a huge full-time commitment. And so I was able to transition over to being president of the Military Spouses Association, something more in a part-time capacity, something that my daughter could tag along, to the meetings and the social outings and things along with me. So now that's the role that I currently hold, as well as vice president of the Desert Leadership Seminar out here. So very active and involved with the spouse community. And honestly, Amy, I kind of have to be out here. Like I mentioned, it being so remote and in the desert and isolated, the community, the spouses have to rely on each other out here.
Yeah, that was going to be kind of one of my biggest questions was I have known several people that have been there, and it really is in the middle of nowhere. And I've also heard that phrase that you said, like you cry when you get there and you cry when you leave. And I've seen both of the two people that I do know that have been there. They've kind of documented their journey when they were PCSing and leaving from there. And they both were so sad to leave that group of people. So that's so true. It happens to everybody. But one of the things I was going to say is like, you're in this remote area. What have you done to kind of make it a little bit more exciting and to build the community? I feel like you've told us, but is there something that like somebody else maybe that got orders that they're not super excited about, or they're going somewhere so far away from family, or they don't know anybody when they get there? What's something that you would recommend that they do to kind of get connected, feel like they have a place, and get involved?
Absolutely. So definitely out here, it's very remote, isolated. I mean, the closest Walmart 40 minutes away. If you want to go to Target, you're driving an hour and a half to Palm Springs. And they're actually out here, you learn this expression. It's called going down the hill. And if you're going down the hill, it means you're making that hour and a half commute kind of through the mountains, through the valleys to get to Target or something like that. So out here, you really do have to get involved within the community on the installation and on the base, or you might go a little stir crazy, or you're going to be spending a lot of money on gas making that hour and a half commute to get to a little bit more civilization into the city. So if you're coming to 29 Palms and maybe you don't really like these type of orders, my first thing is get involved within the spouse community. Now, that's going to look kind of different for everyone. First recommendation is start with your home unit. So whatever unit your service member gets orders to, gets connected with, start there. Get connected with your DRC, your URC, deployment readiness coordinator, if it's a deploying unit. really start there and start volunteering. But also, if you start volunteering within that home unit, you're going to become friends with the spouses who are going to be going through the same things that you are. Maybe your service members are in the same company together, so they're going to be going to the field ops and doing the workup together. So you and that other spouse can really find that camaraderie together of, both of our service members are gone, let's hang out, or let's go volunteer at this unit family event together. So that's definitely my first recommendation, is start getting plugged in within that unit, within that battalion, and that family readiness program first and foremost.
Yeah, no, that's great information. Something I did recently so my husband retired last year, but he travels for work. And I used to do this a ton before when he was active duty, and didn't really for a while. But another friend of mine whose husband also travels for work, I think it was last week, maybe the week before. I essentially was just like, hey, I know your husband's going out of town. Mine's out of town. Let's get together and like tag team dinner with the kids. So it can be something super simple. Like you don't have to feel like you're, get overwhelmed to like go to an event or go whatever, but you can just ask a person like, let's do dinner together or whatever. And like the kids run around, it makes things a lot easier.
Exactly. And Amy, actually yesterday I was having lunch with some ladies at the Desert Leadership Seminar, and they were explaining to me, because when I went through my first deployment, I didn't have my daughter. So it was just me going through deployment. Whereas I was discussing with these spouses, they had little kids in the midst of like their first deployment, 3, 5, 7-year-olds. And so that was kind of a bit of a different experience. And they were telling me they found their battle buddy of who they were going to get through that deployment with, or what you're saying, like who they're going to, let's grab a pizza, take the kids to the park, or hey, can you take my kids tonight so I can have dinner alone, and then we'll swap tomorrow night. So that what you said just reminded me, if you can find that even just one friend or that battle buddy to get you through a deployment, or your spouse being away for, a field off an extended period of time work, then that can really help you out, just finding that one person you're going to get through it with.
Yeah, definitely. As a service member myself, I have not been super involved with like spousing or spousal associations. Just because like I've also been like doing my military thing.
Right.
So as president of the Spouses Association, what are some like resources or things that association can do or provide to help people that are maybe new to an area, or somebody that just like feels like they need to get connected?
Absolutely. So MSA, Military Spouses Association out here. So it's both a social club and that charity philanthropic type of organization. So every single month we offer a variety of sub clubs, 11 right now. We're actually about to add a 12th to the roster, to the list. And so they're all of different varieties. So we have art club, bunco club, coffee club, career club, kids club. So, your kids can have play dates each month. We have wine club. That's a very popular one. Gourmet club, book club. So there's something for everyone. And these clubs don't happen at the same date, same time every month. It's a mixed bag, so some of them happen in the morning, some in the evening, because there are some spouses who stay home to raise their kids. Some spouses are still working outside the home. And so we want to offer, clubs that are in the morning, some in the evening, for those different schedules, different seasons of life that all spouses are in. But aside from our monthly sub clubs that we offer, we also do special events. So actually, Amy, this Saturday, tomorrow night, we're having a hoedown throwdown for the spouses on base. So it's a big fall festival. We're actually bringing out a line dance instructor. We're bringing a mechanical bull. This has never been done before here on the base. So we're really excited to make it happen tomorrow night. But so we do like those type of special events as well. In December, the most popular special event we do is Tour of Homes, which is kind of like a pub crawl across base. And so you go to different houses and you'll have like an alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink and like a little appetizer treat. So that's going to be happening in December. So we definitely have the sub clubs, the special events. But then that other side of MSA is that philanthropic charity, because we are a nonprofit charity side of the organization. And every spring we give out scholarships and grants, scholarships to military spouses who are pursuing higher education, grants to organizations in the local community that are really giving back. And so these special events we do throughout the year are to raise the money. So in the spring, we can continue giving out those scholarships and those grants. So if a military spouse is coming out here, we definitely have something for them. You know, if they aren't, maybe they aren't a drinker. Okay, wine club's not for you, but maybe you like to do arts and crafts. Art club is for you. So hopefully there's something they'd be able to find in MSA.
That's awesome. That makes me want to like come and enjoy these amazing
Come
theme
to the
parties.
desert.
Yeah. How are you coming up with all of these really fun themed party ideas or like events?
So it is not by my own accord, my own doing. I actually have a team. So the executive board. So I am president of MSA, but then I have a vice president one, vice president two, secretary, parliamentarian. So we are a collective team, and we are all working together to come up with these ideas, these new special events that we want to host throughout the year. So we kind of all start with the drawing board, but then once the executive board, once we came up with kind of, here's some ideas what we may want to do this year, then we had to present it to our general board and kind of get our general board and our unit reps and all of them on board with helping us out executing these large events this year. So it's actually interesting, Amy, because when I was at the USO, I was a one-woman show. Like it was, I make the plan, I plan, and I execute. Like it was just me. And then I'd kind of run it by my supervisor. But for the most part, I kind of had the final say on everything. Here in MSA, it's very different than my old role because I have a team of people helping me plan and execute, which is both, you know, has its pros and its cons, you know, certainly. But I do have this team that is helping me, like with the hoedown. My goodness, the logistics for this, thank goodness I have all these people helping me out plan such a large scale event.
Yeah, no kidding. That sounds really, really fun, but definitely logistically involved. What is something,
Yes.
because you have done those kind of two different roles of like by yourself and with teams, if somebody is planning an event with somebody else, I know
Mhm.
I feel like anytime somebody volunteers to plan something, you're typically kind of a type A person that wants to have control.
Yeah.
And then if you get multiple of those together, because you do need to have more than one person to plan something, how
Mhm.
do you have recommendations of like how to make that a smooth situation so you're not like
Yeah.
trying to take control from each other?
Yeah. And you know, right now I'm really in the midst of learning how to work with the team, but also being president, learning how to lead a team and lead a team effectively. Because certainly there are a lot of hands in the cookie jar. That's the best way I can describe it right now. And what I've really come down to the conclusion of is that everyone on the team wants what's best for MSA. Like we are all in this for the same reason that we want MSA to be a success this year, that we want the spouses on this installation to be connected. You know, that is really at the end of the day what everyone is after. That's the end goal. So even when we are in the midst of, maybe we all have a very different thought on, here's an example. Last week or two, we all had very different thoughts on where we should rent the yard games from. Should we use Outdoor Adventure? Should we borrow it from some friends? We kind of had mixed opinions on that. A lot of hands in the cookie jar. But at the end of the day, it came down to we want to save MSA money and make sure that we have enough money that more money can go to the scholarships and grants rather than spending it on the yard games. So when it came down to it, yeah, we were having a little not even disagreement, just a little bit of what option is better, which one should we go with, you know, really trying to work through find a solution. And we ended up finding that solution. And so it really does come down to everyone here, though we have a different opinion, we all want what's best at the end of the day. How do we get there together? How do we get to that solution? Is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's awesome. That common goal.
Yes,
It might
common
be a
goal.
journey to get there, but we all need to cross the finish line together. And here's where
Yes,
the finish line is. Yeah, that's good.
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that.
So I know that you have obviously event planning experience doing this, but you also did that at USO. Up until
Mhm.
recently, like I really only knew USO as like a small area in most airports. Like if
Oh,
you were in the
mhm.
military, you could like go hang out there. But recently, I was doing some training in Pensacola this summer for my military job. And then my husband flew down with the kids. but I was going to be like in class training when his flight landed. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I can't pick you up. Like, I don't know how I can like leave the rental car for you or whatever. And somebody else in my class suggested USO. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. So I like called USO and was like, is it okay if I leave the keys there? Would he be able to pick them up? And they're like, yeah, totally fine. So I drove there, dropped him off. They were like the nicest, friendliest people, obviously. But I was just like, why have I never used the USO for anything other than to like hang out between flights? So it was super helpful to like have a place to do that. But can you tell us a little bit more about what USO does? Because like as a military member, I didn't really know a whole lot. Like I said, besides like it's just at the airport. So
Absolutely. I love that you shared that story. And I love that the USO was there for your family during that time. That's awesome. So you're right that a lot of people with the USO, they pretty much easily recognize them at the airports. Like they see kind of the USO logo there, the signage. Sometimes people have never even gone into the center though. But like you said, during layovers or in between class, like go and utilize the USO centers. Usually there's snacks and free beverages, free Wi-Fi, like a place to either take a nap or maybe catch up on some schoolwork, toys for the kids to play with, just a spot for military service members and their families to go. Because right there, a lot of times military service members may know that they can go in there, but military spouses and the dependents can also utilize USO centers as well. So yes, definitely during travel at airports, take advantage of USO centers. But then there are USOs even on military installations. So the one here at 29 Palms, we don't even have a formal center here. We do we kind of have an office space, and we do outreach and kind of execution outside of the office. But then, for example, at Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, there's an actual USO center on that installation that you can go into that they do events from. Hopefully one day we'll have more of a formal center here at McCaxey at 29 Palms. Future goal, hopefully.
yeah.
But definitely on the installations, you can find some USO centers, not just at the airports, on the installations as well. Or USOs might be doing outreach to the community and kind of going out and hosting USO events on the base. But for example, here at 29 Palms, at the end of the day, the goal of the USO is boost morale for the service members and their families. Whether you are at a remote and isolated desert duty station like 29 Palms, or maybe you are, at San Diego Camp Pendleton, we really just want to boost your morale, because when it comes down to it, military life is very demanding for the service member and for the families. And so it's making sure that in the midst of all the in the midst of military life, you're able to kind of fall back on the USO to boost your morale and kind of give you that taste of home in a way of, you know what, this is well worth it type of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So some of the events that you've done, they're morale building, they're fun. What are some things that people can take from your experiences and incorporate into like events or parties that they're having at their own house, to where maybe it's not as big of a scale, or it's not for the same group of people, but it's like, oh, I did this one event and this made it really successful, or this made it really helpful, and it's like transferable to something you could host in your own home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're right. Like when I did different events for the USO, some of them were more small scale, hosting story times for just 10 kids at a time. Some of them were more large scale, like 100 kids coming out for an LA Rams football camp. Like there have been some small events I did and some also large scale. But practically, when it came down to it, first and foremost, most people who want to host and plan parties themselves are pretty detail oriented, good planners, organizers. Definitely setting the dates in advance and making sure your marketing leading up to that event is on par. So for example, you don't want to put out that next week is an event. You probably want to do it 4 to 6 weeks out and then market accordingly, like every single week leading up to it. Pretty much reminders. Like even if you were just hosting, let's say, a tea party in the afternoon, like you wanted some spouses to come over, have a little social tea party. You want to make sure that you're sending out reminders leading up to that event. So maybe 2-3 weeks ago, you sent out that formal invitation, but maybe saying, hi ladies, like, 2 weeks from now is the tea party we're having. Make sure to RSVP if you haven't already. By the way, here's kind of the weather coming up. This would probably be a good dress code or, dress that you could wear to the event. Then the week before, making sure, hey ladies, thank you for submitting your RSVPs. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Like, I have the menu finalized, decorations are here, looking forward to it. So even if it's something like a really small message you're sending out, whether by text or through your Facebook event, the reminders are really helpful because people are busy. What is nice about if you set up like an event on Facebook, which is what I would do for the USO, kind of in our Facebook groups we have for the installation for the USO, is it would send out almost reminders for the attendees, like if they RSVP'd. So that was always helpful. But I would always add like an additional post, an additional message of like what I just shared, like some of those messages, just because, like I said, people are busy. And if they are committed to multiple things that week, you don't want them to forget about your event. You want them to come and show up. You've put out a lot of work to make sure that this event is a success. You want people to show up. So those reminders are very important.
That's such a great tip. Probably something I should get better at. Like, I'm having people here next week. I should probably send them a little reminder. Oh, that's good.
Just a little reminder. Yep, because people are busy. So
yeah,
reminders are
definitely. How do you keep from getting overwhelmed when you're planning a big event? Like, I'm sure, we're not all planning parties for 100 people or whatever, but even if it's just for 10 or 15, like sometimes that can be overwhelming too. What are some things you've done to kind of like help yourself not get overwhelmed when you're in the thick of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So two things. So first of all, I think with the USO, it was always shopping in advance for the event. So really kind of planning ahead. Planning ahead, even it seems almost crazy to plan 4 to 6 weeks out. But even if you give yourself 2 weeks in advance, if you want to start there, of go shopping for that event, for the decorations, some of the foods, like the non-perishable type of things, and it as far in advance as possible will save you stress as the event starts to approach. With MSA right now, I'm really learning, Amy, about delegation. Because again, with the USO, I really didn't delegate anything out. It was, I go and get everything done. And then like the day of, I'd have some volunteers come and help me execute like day of. But behind the scenes, it was, I took care of everything. There was no delegation. Here at MSA, it's different. And I'm learning that aspect of event planning, that if you have a team, you're able to delegate tasks out to make your load lighter. I really need to get better at this because, for example, in preparation for the hoedown last week, I was running around this base. Like, I was gathering the signatures we needed for some of our paperwork. I was going to outdoor adventures for the yard games. I was just running around. And I realized later, because my vice president called me and she was such a great teammate for this, of like, I can tell you're overwhelmed today trying to get everything done just today. Which also, having a child now, it does make, party planning and preparation more difficult. I had to hire a sitter just so I could go out and get some of these things done. That way I could get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible. But she called me and was like, I can tell that you're overwhelmed. In the future, make sure you're delegating, like gathering the signatures to the parliamentarian. That way, because that kind of fits more within her role and responsibilities more than mine. And I was like, you know what? I really should have considered that I could have delegated this task out, have one less thing on my plate. So moving forward with planning events for MSA, I definitely want to get better at the delegation aspect. So maybe if you're planning an event for yourself, figuring out some type of delegation aspect could probably be helpful even for home events as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my husband gets delegated to a lot when we have stuff.
I will tell you what, Amy, whether I was at the USO or now at MSA, my husband is also a volunteer as well. I definitely delegate tasks out to him, whether he is willing to or not.
Yeah. My husband usually doesn't mind, but even if you have like people coming, like, even if it's not like a potluck or something, but asking somebody to pick something up on the way that you forgot or whatever, like, don't like hesitate to ask other people, like, we're all so happy to like be invited and come to something. Like it's not a big deal if I have to like pick up an extra thing like en route. Like
Yeah.
that's
That's
easy.
actually a good thought. Like sometimes, how maybe at family get togethers, you might get a text like, hey, do we have ice? Does anyone need me to stop and bring ice or something? You're right. That's like a small little thing like, oh, if you forgot the ice, delegate that out to that family member on the way anyway. So you're right. They might be willing to help with something just like that. Like they want to get involved in the event somehow. So delegate something
Yeah.
out that get it off your plate. Yep. I
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. So I know you said part of the Military Spouse Association is kind of like the charity aspect of it, and you have
Mhm.
experience in fundraising for that. A lot of us also have things that we have to fundraise for, whether it be like your kid's school or a charity or organization, or maybe some sort of neighborhood event or something. What are some ways that you found that kind of help motivate those in that community or those attending to donate or like give back? I know it can be kind of awkward sometimes to ask people for money.
Mm.
So what
Yeah.
are some ways that you found that kind of make that a little bit easier?
That is a really good question, honestly, because when I was at the USO, truly there is more of like a team and a department that handles kind of the donation aspect of it. But every year, the USO, we would have a local like charity a gala, to help raise money for the organization. And when we did the USO gala, for example, we on the big screen, there was something, an aspect of it called fund a need. And pretty much I got to put up events that I wanted to do here on the base and put it up there with kind of a price tag of I would love to do a father-daughter dance for, let's just say, $2,000. And then someone would be able to be like, oh my gosh, I want the service members and their daughters to experience a father-daughter dance. Let me raise my paddle and donate to that. Or for coffee connections or story time. So we would put it up there and almost in a way prey on the emotions in a way of like, don't you want these dads, these service members who aren't deployed to, experience a night out with their daughters at this father-daughter dance in a way. So people really like to donate money to causes that they care about, to things that they can really get behind, things that align with their values, especially. But if you can really almost like prey on the heartstrings of the emotion side of it, like I truly, Amy, could get better at this. I'm more of a practical person, but it really comes down to with the marketing aspect of it is people want to get to the heart of it. So that will definitely help when it comes to fundraising for different things. MSA, this is our first fundraising event of the year, the one that's happening tomorrow night. So I can probably have some good pointers later on in the year for in regards to MSA. But last year I actually know that the board had success with going down the hill, and they actually set up a table in front of a local grocery store with our MSA signage and everything very visible, and people just donated into the jar like, hey, what are you here for, like this tabling event, and us being able to share that military spouses, our organization, what we're doing for military spouses up in the desert at this remote duty station. People like that. They wanted to be like, oh my gosh, I want the military spouses to make friends and have this social outing and, have something to do out here while their service members are deployed or whatnot. So they raised a good amount of money just doing something like that. So I think regardless of what you're doing, whether it's a formal gala or you're standing in front of the grocery store, first of all, you have to be passionate about what it is that you're trying to raise money for. Like, make sure you have, all your words together. You are very confident in what it is that you're trying to sell them on donating to. So make sure you're passionate about it first and foremost. But then secondly, make sure you kind of prey on the heartstrings a little bit, get down to the cause or why you guys are doing what you're doing. That'd be my suggestions.
Yeah, that's all really good. And I mean, who can, you know, say no to somebody that's passionate about what they're doing and,
Exactly.
asking
Mhm.
nicely, please.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Passion and good manners. I think that's a good strategy right there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been really informative. I think we all know a lot more about USO and about MSA. Like I said, I wasn't super familiar with them. So even being in the military and being a military spouse for a long time, So I appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit more about where people can find you? And then we're going to get into our last call questions. Maybe somebody, wants to take some of your great ideas at 29 Palms and implement them somewhere else, or just needs a little encouragement as a military spouse. So where can we find you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram at Madyson Greene Coaching, I'm getting started again of really working to help new Marine Corps spouses be successful at their first duty station, at that first installation, whether you get sent to the desert or somewhere else. Just if you could follow me at Madyson Greene Coaching there for some helpful content coming soon. So that is my recommendation there. You can also go to madysongreene.com and you can download a ebook of 42 acronyms a new Marine Corps spouse needs to know.
That's awesome. I would probably learn something from that too. Like being in the Navy, we speak a little bit different languages. So yeah, awesome. So we'll have links to all of that in the show notes so everybody can go check that out. Now let's get into these last call questions, which are kind of fun party related ones. First one is what has been your favorite party to host?
Oh my goodness, that's too hard of a question. Let's see. I think one of the most memorable was for Military Spouse Appreciation Day. I hosted a brunch for the spouses here while I was still at the USO. And that was probably one of my most memorable was hosting that brunch because it was also near Mother's Day weekend. And the very next day on Mother's Day, I found out I was expecting my daughter. So both of those
Oh,
in the same weekend, very memorable for sure.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, for lots of reasons that's memorable. That's fun. What has been the best community that you've been a part of and what's made it so great?
Mm. Honestly, I'm going to have to say here at 29 Palms, but also it's almost all I can say because this has been our first duty station, like the first military installation we've ever gone to. And I really think that, but even what I've heard from other spouses who have been at other Marine Corps duty stations, 29 Palms is special for the community because you almost have to get connected if you want to survive here in the desert. So I really enjoyed our 3 years here at 29 Palms, starting to get sad thinking of, oh, we're going to have to leave and start all over again. But yeah, so 29 Palms.
Yeah, that's fun. You're not the only one that feels that way. So, and it sounds like it's really refreshing. I feel like a lot of times we hear new military spouses almost complain or like, I don't want to say complain, like that makes it seem like there's something wrong, but they just are discouraged because it's hard or it's not maybe what they expected or whatever. And it just sounds like you've gotten so involved so quickly. And I think that's probably what's going to make your time as a military spouse really successful. So I congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Last one, your best party hosting tip.
Oh, best party hosting tip. Okay, this one kind of goes back to the being passionate about what you're doing, but really enjoying the type of event that you're about to plan. Like almost getting passionate about you really want to host this. Why do you want to host this type of event? Maybe there'll be some things that you almost have to host. Maybe it's for work or something of that nature, and you just have to host that type of meeting or some type of meeting or something of that nature. But really, if you can get passionate about the type of event that you're planning, it's going to make it more fun too, that you're looking forward to hosting this tea party at your house. You're looking forward to hosting your kid's birthday party. You're looking forward to hosting this brunch, whatever it may be. If you're passionate and excited about that event moving forward, you're kind of going to be excited and have some fun as you go through the monotonous and the details and the shopping for it and the planning the decorations. You're going to have more fun with it if you're really looking forward to the end result in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I actually feel like I haven't really said this to anyone. Like I obviously have planned a lot of parties and like the blog, the podcast, all that stuff, like yay, celebrations. But to be honest, in the last few years, I'm kind of like, meh, not that excited about a lot of them. So maybe I should I don't know, adjust what I'm doing so that I can get passionate and excited about them again. Because some of them I've just kind of been like, it's almost been like, oh, we've always had Easter brunch. So we're going to have Easter brunch again. And it's like, man, I'm not that excited or whatever, but I need to get
Switch it
excited
up
again.
somehow. Absolutely. For example, I'm excited in a couple weeks. I'm going to throw together, I say, because it's only 2 weeks away. Is like a Taylor Swift movie night for the spouses here on base and go see the Eras Tour movie. So I'm like, that's going to be fun. So come up with something fun and creative that even you can throw together and have some fun with.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun and encouraging, and we'll have links to everything in the show notes so that everybody can follow you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you everyone for listening today.